You are listening to Waywut? This is a weekly rabbit hole podcast that goes into a variety of topics ranging from the supernatural to sports to science or anything else that we find interesting. We post episodes every Tuesday. We post on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Pandora. Please follow us on any of those. If you prefer video, you can always subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you want to talk to us or keep up with any random information we decide to talk about, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, X, whatever it's called, under @Waywut Podcast. That does it for all the self-promotion stuff. Thank you for listening, and here we go. Hello, and welcome to Waywut. It's Darrell, and I'm here with the winner of the 2023 Best Pharmaceutical Test Subject Award, Jason.
Oh, hello, I think.
I mean, honestly, whenever I was younger, I always wanted to do that. You know, I guess I read too many books or comic books and shit, and it's like, dude, I want to, them test some pharmaceutical on me so that I can, like shoot fire out of my eyes or lightning bolts from my ass.
I like hearing the commercials on TV and all the side effects they start listing. They're about 45 seconds long and side effects.
I saw really funny. There's a YouTube channel called There I Ruined It, where he will take songs and he'll mishmash them. But he also took a song. I forget what song, but he basically changed all the lyrics to the side effects of a drug. It was really funny.
Most of the time, diarrhea will be in there somewhere.
Yeah, or death.
Yeah,
potentially.
I always throw that one in at the very end.
All right, enough of that mess. We can get heavy later. So I'm going to start this off. Being that I just got back from a trip and it's only been back at work past couple days, and you feel I've just been exhausted.
Vacation from your vacation.
No, it wasn't that. No, I enjoyed that. It's just work feels more exhausting now. It's because I got to be lazy for a couple weeks. So I'm going to do a bit of a lazy guy rant today. Now, the majority of my career has been in like leadership roles. Supervisors, manager, director, blah, 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 blah. And I like being a boss. I do. I don't do it for the power. And I don't do it to, climb the corporate ladder. I do it because I'm lazy. That's why I like it.
To tell people what to do, and
not exactly. I mean,
you tell them what to do, and you observe them doing it, making sure they're doing it right and correctly.
To a degree, I'm better at not doing things. I mean, anyone who's ever worked for me knows this, and because I never hide it.
Worked with you,
yeah. Well, ha ha ha. But whenever somebody would work for me, and I'd be like, oh, "Why are you making me do stuff?" I'm not meant to do stuff. I'm good at getting other people to do stuff and making sure that they're not bored doing stuff and they get to go on and do better stuff. I mean, I do wish I was more ambitious, but that is like way too much work. Just
it's too ambitious to be ambitious.
Yeah, I mean, it's just now dawning on me that I think my rant before was about how I was too lazy to be a cult leader, and now it's how
you want to be on a couch.
I'm just always lazy, apparently. Now, the problem with being a lazy leader is that I will never, ever get the opportunity to be in a position to be corrupted. And I'm not saying that lazy people don't do bad stuff, because they do. They're the ones you hear about getting caught most of the time because they're too lazy to adequately cover their ass. Yeah. I mean, what I'm jealous of like the psychotic narcissistic leaders. And not for bullshit reasons like, I wish I didn't care so much. It's because of their ability to be corrupted. I want to be bought. I want to be able to step on people to climb my way to the top and do sketchy things for a favor, and get preferential treatment. That'd be awesome.
Be a bad guy in a movie or a book.
Yeah, I just don't want to work as hard as they do to get to that point. Because it takes a lot to get there, and I'll never be that guy. I mean, these are all the people that like go into politics with kind of a lot of money, just a little bit of a lot of money, but then they retire super mega rich,
Mhm.
because that's if I ever got into politics, I'd be doing it to get rich.
All the ones in the offices right now.
Oh hell yeah! I mean,
My
because like, I
God.
mean, I'm really, and I'm honest about that because I'm not trying to come at any of this from like some sort of moral high ground. I'm just irritated that I don't have the drive to get in that position to, like monetize that stuff. I mean, I watched House of Cards. Stepping
Yeah.
on other people and treating them like chess pieces is a lot of work and
Yeah.
stress. He was so
Constant
stressed
stress.
out. Yes. You mean you have to think
The
like
crown
30
is
moves
heavy.
ahead. Yeah. You got to think 30 moves ahead. You constantly have to watch your back because you're associating with people that are just as sociopathic as you are. And on top of that, it's never enough. You just want more. And as a lazy person, I love that I can be like, yeah, that's enough. I'm good. There's a good stopping point. So I'm like, yeah, I'm all right. I'll never be one of those guys that's like, oh yeah, I have $100 million, but I must have another
200.
billion, 200 million. Yeah, I'd be like, wow, $100 million. Man, I could not do stuff for a long time that way. But just in the off chance, if you ever see me running for office, know it's because I found some motivation somehow, and I only have my own self interest in mind. This is the only time I'll
You're
be
definitely
honest
gonna get something out
about
of it.
that. Yeah. I'm doing it for me, not for the people. No matter what future me might say. So, speaking of corruption, today we're going to talk about something that no one thought too much about until a few years ago. The FDA.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So, like most things, the FDA was something that began with good intentions. They wanted to stop people from getting swindled, injured, or killed by bad drugs. The whole snake
Yeah.
oil
Just have
salesman. Mhm.
regulations.
So what they used at the time to regulate that is the U.S. Department of Agriculture. The one that you see on your steaks, USDA. They had a chemistry division, and over the years, they picked up the responsibility to enforce the various laws about drugs, which were pretty much opium, cocaine, and alcohol back then. And any food that was being sold across state lines. That because, back then, that was, was more about it being interstate commerce than being, what it was, like, hey, don't sell people food with maggots in it or whatever. Now, eventually, a fellow by the name of Wiley took charge of it in the early 20th century, and he did so with gusto.
Oh, you want to make a difference.
Yeah, I mean, he came in there and he was wanting to bust some heads, but with this being pre-Depression USA, uh, it was still relatively close to the Civil War, and so federal power was still kind of a sensitive thing. It didn't really gain a lot of power until during the Depression when Roosevelt was trying to, put in all those federal services. So many of his charges would get thrown out of court because it had to be tried as intentional fraud. Um, they would find these little loopholes, like
Which is hard to prove. Yeah.
I didn't mean to, deceive people into thinking that cocaine would heal their hemorrhoids, whatever the case
Yeah.
may be. Instead of snorting it up your nose, butt chugging cocaine.
Yeah. That's something hard to prove.
Yeah. Intent's always hard to prove unless somebody like writes it down on like one of those wrestling audience posters. It's kind of hard to improve intent.
Here is my plan.
Yeah. So the government had to put a ton of focus on this to enforce the very difficult to prove laws and change the USDA Bureau of Chemistry to the Food, Drug, and Insecticide Administration.
Those three words should not go together.
Yeah, it took him a hot minute. So after a few years, they were like, "Man, Food and Drug Administration sounds better." Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I do think the FDA is still in charge of insecticides, though. I just don't think they advertise it anymore. It's like
I
as
mean,
long
I
as it kills
understand it's
bugs,
a
who
good bug,
cares?
yeah. But
It's like, how's it kill the bugs? Is it dangerous? No, no.
I want to see them dissolve or something. I don't want you to see them kill over.
Yeah. Well, this reorganization, where they had their own little administration. I mean, it's still kind of part of the USDA at the time. This had them chasing down places that were using bad cures or lying about lying about active ingredients and just label stuff. Whenever they're just flat out lying on their label. Those were the
Saying it's
things,
one thing, it's actually water or saline.
or alcohol, because that was another big one. It'd be like, oh yes, no, this thing will cure everything, and it's basically like 100 proof liquor. Uh, so in the end, though, I mean, it was still the same stuff they were trying to do before, but they had a new name and more funding. It's a new, nice, shiny thing.
Count up that turd.
Yep. So then Franklin Roosevelt and Congress created the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act in 1938, which made the FDA into the body that does as we expect them to do today. The one that looks over drugs and makes sure that they're appropriately tested before they're allowed to be sold to people. That
Preferably on rats. Yeah.
FDA, where you
Yep.
the one
Preferably
that
on rats.
the one that's their sole purpose is to keep people from dying. That one. So at least that's what it's supposed to. The one where you always hear about, oh, the FDA approved this drug, blah blah blah. Well, that's it for the history lesson. I just wanted it to I just wanted to convey the intention of what this department was for before I start picking it apart for what it is now.
Oh
I think
boy.
that's important because intention. The intention is good. The purpose is good.
Yeah. Like your
Yeah,
heart's in the right place, but you
yeah,
still fucked up.
yeah. Well, like most things that began with good intentions, such as, the EPA, Susan G. Komen Foundation, or tobacco companies, some of those people I was ranting about earlier, this psycho sociopath people, started taking advantage of it. First things first, just to show I'm not full of shit, let's follow the money. We'll start with money. But Darrell, the FDA is a federal entity, so it's paid for by tax dollars. You know, well, you'd be right for about 2/3 of it. 2/3 of it is, but in 2021,
Private.
user fees for drug, device, and biotech companies were responsible for 1.1 billion of the FDA's $3 billion budget.
Yes. Please pass my drug. Here is some money.
Yeah, well, user fees make sense. I mean, and it's like whenever you go to like the DMV and you have to pay a fee for your license, or when you go and buy a marriage license. User fees make sense to a degree, but they can be abused, especially in a corporate sense. If they started charging $1,000 for driver's licenses, it wouldn't fly. But
No.
you can get away with a lot whenever you're dealing with corporations. Now, that 1.1 billion of the FDA's $3 billion budget, if you dig in just a little bit more, you'll see that pharmaceutical companies funded 75% of the FDA's drug division. So, the majority of it.
That's so crooked. It's so back asswards.
I mean, yeah, we'll get to why in a little while, but I just think it's important to understand how this entity gets money.
It'd be like the
Um,
student paying the teacher to teach them, but they're still going to pass them.
I don't know what you're talking about. All right. Well, since 1992, the government was trying to take the burden off the taxpayers and sticking it to those giant pharmaceutical companies. That was the intent behind it. It's like, oh, we got to have this police you. You're going to have to pay for it. Rawr, we're good. Yay. And being that the pharmaceutical lobby, which don't get me started on that very fancy way of saying legalized bribery, continues to encourage Congress to reauthorize the FDA to collect those fees. All right, so they're funding a federal entity, and they want to keep it that way. Let's see. And how much are these fees, Darrell's? Oh, these fees are around 1.5 to 3.1 million dollars. That's a fee for, like, say you're trying to register a drug.
You got to
Or
pay that just to get the drug
yes.
registered.
Yes.
Okay.
But I mean, like, so.
That's a drop in the bucket for these damn companies.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, though. But it's still a lot of zeros. So I wonder why, they would actively, lobby to pay that much out of pocket. They claim it's because it helps make drug approvals faster, so that they can, get people the life-saving drugs they need without the red tape of an underfunded bureaucracy. Because they're like, we don't want them to be underfunded, so you keep letting us give them money so that they can stay, really effective. They leave out the part that it's not faster because more people are working. It's faster because they reduce the requirements in the approval process. For instance, the FDA went from requiring 2 clinical trials to 1.
Once again, preferably on rats.
Well, clinical trials are generally on people at that point. And I don't know about you, but I would think that you would want more than one. I
Yeah.
mean, historically,
One could be a fluke.
well, it's not just that it's a fluke, but you want them performed at different places. So say there's some scientists that really, really want the outcome that they want, and they will ignore data that say someone else won't. So anyways, but that's not all. Remember how much those user fees were?
Yes.
You think anyone can easily start a new drug company if the regulatory fees are that high?
No. It's going to stick with the big boys.
The big boys are able to prevent any new competition from coming in. I mean, unless somebody gets like super funded, but at the same time, who's able to get super funded? If I was able to just get super funded, I would have already made 3 movies by now. It's not easy getting money.
Right.
Now, the biggest problem with this is if they're funded by, the pharmaceutical companies, who does the FDA work for? Who do they need to satisfy? Who do they need to protect? If you said the people, you're sweet. You're very wonderful and kind
Bless your
person,
heart.
but you're wrong. And you need to get a job, because when you do work, you understand that you work for who pays you. That's who you work for. You work for the people that give you money. Furthermore, there are doctors that are brought in for advising the FDA as advisors regarding new drugs, and they are paid by the FDA. Oddly enough, after their advising work for pharmaceutical companies, after they spend $24 million in personal payments and research support for those top 16 advisors. Isn't that kind of weird? All those advisors, once they're done doing the advising, all of a sudden the pharmaceutical money just keeps pouring in on them after. It's kind of weird.
Everybody's got a handout.
Yeah. Some of that comes from the companies whose drugs were actually being reviewed, and some are actually from their competitors, because, some of them are, I will say, they'll be a bit dirty. They're like, hey, Dr. Bob, approve, if you approve this drug, I'll definitely make sure that your research gets funded, or that you can go buy an island or whatever. And then the other ones are like, hey, Dr. Bob, say their drug sucks. And it's not good. It's deadly. and I'll fund your research. So, I mean, either way, they come out on top.
Yep.
I think it's clearly established that things can appear as if the FDA and its processes could, in fact, possibly, maybe, be influenced by money. Maybe.
Possibly.
Maybe. Just maybe. You know how in some crime drama movies, it comes out that a cop becomes a murderer or drug dealer using all their cop knowledge? They're like,
Yeah.
"Oh no, this guy knows so much. How does he
Yep.
know? How is he able to predict what we're gonna do? He must have been a cop, that
He
sort
must
of
have been on
thing."
the force.
He was my partner. He wouldn't have done that, whatever. Well, this is also what's happened with 9 out of the 10 previous FDA directors.
9 out of the
90%.
10. 9
90%.
times.
Yep. 9 times. Yeah. 90% of the previous FDA commissioners went on to be high level executives, board members, or advisors for pharmaceutical companies.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's the
It's smart.
obvious jump.
Oh yeah. No, it's an incredible
Gotta keep
investment
that
on
paycheck.
it's an incredible investment by the part of the pharmaceutical companies. You bring in the guy that knows the obstacles, knows the weaknesses, and has influence.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, it's what you do. It's smart business on their part, but I mean, it's just so dirty, nasty.
Well, yeah. When they're not really they care about the drug. They don't really care about the people that's taking the drug. They just want it to cost as much as possible and make as much money as possible.
Pretty much. I mean, it's nasty. And it's not just the bigwigs at the FDA. It's the reviewers. 60% of the reviewers that leave the FDA go work for the pharmaceutical companies. 60% of those people would not be the good guy in one of those movies. Come and work for me. And instead of them being like, never, they're more like, hell yeah. For a couple more weeks of PTO, I can go approve that death drug that you guys are working on. Thank
Yep.
you. Come
Yeah, it
on.
has some weird death later in the movie.
Yeah. All right. I'll admit it. I'm jealous. I am. I mean, how awesome would that be to double your annual salary just for your principles? You know,
That would be
I would
great.
totally do it. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I
sign
mean,
me up.
yeah, and I mean, and I will say this now. This is, I guess our first advertising. If anyone wants to buy my principles, they're for sale. You can have them.
It's money
All
for
right.
anything.
We talked about money. Now let's talk about cost. From 1999 to 2020, the U.S. drug overdose mortality rate has more than quadrupled. Not the
Say it
total,
again.
uh, the rate. The rate of overdose mortality has quadrupled from 100,000, uh, 100,000 to from 4 out of every 100,000 people to 30 for every 100,000 people.
Damn.
Yeah, it's a lot. Oxycodone is one of the well-known failures of the FDA that contributed to that.
Oh yeah.
They, yeah,
Lots of
they.
documentaries about that one.
Oh yeah, no, they let it
Right.
go
Even a
through.
TV show.
Yeah, they let it go through, saying that it could be used for chronic pain without addiction,
Oh
which
yeah.
was absolutely
A
wrong.
bold-faced lie.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I would go into a ton of detail, but you can look up Purdue Pharmaceutical or watch the movie Dope Sick with Michael Keaton.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, either one of those will give you all you need to know about that. Um, but in the end, you end up with all these people getting prescribed a strong ass opiate for mild pain. They get hooked and end up giving hand jobs for smack. That's the story of oxycodone.
Or blowjobs, whatever.
Yeah, I mean the FDA, they helped to get out there with that one clinical study, like I was telling you about.
Mm-hmm.
That one clinical study lasted 2 weeks for people with arthritis. 2 weeks. Do you feel
So
you've
that's the one
been?
they quoted. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel addicted? No. Can I have another pill, please? It's like, but I mean,
I
it's
know,
like
please now.
uh, I determined in this 2-week period that there is no chance of long-term addiction. Could you add another 0 to that check, please? Thank you.
I'm pretty sure that's how the conversation went down.
Yeah. You know that the opioid crisis is like a real thing whenever they use that to kill off Roseanne off of her own TV show.
Is that how they did it?
Yeah. She
I wonder how they
OD'd
did it.
on opiates. She was a
Oh,
pill-head.
hmm.
Fentanyl or something. I don't know. They that's one of their things they'll go back to. It's like, oh god, no, evil opiates, they took my mom. Man. All right. So just to wrap up some of that part, here are a couple drugs that the FDA allowed to be used by the public. There is, gosh, I'm gonna have trouble reading this. Hold on.
Oh God.
Troglitazone is a diabetes drug that was available in other countries. It was submitted in 1996, where the doctor assigned to review it, Dr. John Grigian.
France.
No, it's Dr. G said, "Hey, this thing appears to cause significant liver damage." The maker of the drug company complained, causing the FDA to fire him and remove his review. They approved the drug in 1997.
Don't talk bad about my drug.
Yeah. Following that, people died, lawsuits happened, and in 2000, the FDA said, whoops, and retracted its approval. My bad. But yeah, no,
Oopsie.
they straight up fired a dude because he was like, hey, this thing's bad. And they're like, he's picking on me. Here's
Mm.
$50. Will you go beat him up? And they're like, yes, we will. It costs $75 though. You know.
Kind of so like today still.
Yeah, no, yeah, that
Don't
was
hurt my
20. That was
feelings.
24 years ago. All right, then we got Vioxx. It was an anti-inflammatory approved despite the trials showing the test subjects were 4 times likely to have heart attacks.
Were they
As
on rats?
people, I don't give a damn about your rats.
I'm just making sure they get their own. They're out there. They need it.
I'm sure plenty of rats were killed in the making of all these drugs, so you don't have to
Yes.
ask.
Just making
Millions.
sure. Just
Yes.
making sure.
As
I feel better.
another study came out reinforcing the previous study, a disclosure from Merck, the drug manufacturer, showed they withheld the risks from the doctors and the patients. It's been associated with 88,000 to 140,000 cases of heart disease, where about half of them died.
Have they did any kind of class action lawsuit on these drugs yet?
I'll get to all that.
Oh, okay.
Merck decided to pull the drug from the market in 2005. The FDA officially said in 2005 and in 2015 that they still see that it isn't worse than any other anti-inflammatories with different active ingredients.
What?
They're ready
You
to
tell me
die on the
people.
hill.
So they're telling me that people take ibuprofen and 100,000 people have died from it.
Yeah, apparently. It's no worse. Well, no, you got to think of prescription level though. But yeah, no, I don't think that what they're saying, it makes any damn sense. One of the really fun things that came out of all this is in a congressional hearing is that the same person in charge of the pre-approval. Wait. Oh, Darrell, fuck off. Okay. All right. One of the really fun things that came out about this in a congressional hearing is that the person that was in charge of the pre-approval was also in charge of the post-approval monitoring. This gave him the ability to
See it all the way through.
Yeah, and make organizational changes to hush up negative reports. That's a nice way of sitting there demoting people and firing people that say they're going to tell on you, and promoting people that are like, "I got your back, bro."
It's kind of like the mob having a mole in the police department.
Yeah. A survey resulting from this showed that 20% of the FDA scientists had been asked to exclude or alter technical information in a conclusion for non-scientific reasons, which basically means change this or you're fired. So in the end, we don't just have to worry about money tainting things. There's good old office politics too. It's
Of
like, I'm
course.
not taking the blame for this. All I did was sit there and, help that drug company that said that they would hire me someday for an exorbitant salary. Come on. What's so wrong with that? I mean, geez, it didn't like, 88,000 people had heart attacks or nothing, but it could be as
Yeah.
many as 140,000. Oh,
Oh,
well,
they
it
don't
still
even know
wasn't
that.
my fault.
Not very much.
No. Now, there is plenty more to talk about on all this, but I am thoroughly saddened and a little scared. However, just make sure you do your research or do like I did and marry somebody who will do that research, and then you get to learn all sorts of fun stuff. Like, she knows where to look all the, like the, clinical trial data and all that, because it's available for
Yeah, it has
everyone.
to be.
Yeah. And not just that, but you can see who funded it. So if it's actually
Oh,
funded by the pharmaceutical company, she just, whenever she's looking at drugs and for herself, she throws those out. She wants to know the independent ones, the academic ones, the ones that came from universities and things like that.
yeah.
So unless someone decides to pay off Jason or me or both, join us next time, and Jason will tell us some things that will hopefully make us say, "Boy, what?" Well, you want to say bye to everybody, Jason?
I'll hopefully see y'all later. If not,
I would
it's
hope
been
I
real.
don't. I hope somebody pays us off.
Oh,
Yeah,
well.
buy me, please. Bye.
Later.
Thank you for listening to Waywut. We really appreciate it. Remember that we post episodes every Tuesday and would love for you to rate us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or Pandora. If you are watching us on YouTube, throw us a comment, subscribe, and do all the other things that YouTube likes for you to do. You can stalk us on Facebook and X/Twitter with the handle Waywut Podcast. Once again, thank you for hanging out with us for a little bit, and join us next time when we'll get you to say, "Wait, what?"